Good evening, delegates. Good evening, members of the Diplomatic Corps, ambassadors of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Republic of Kenya, and the Republic of Ghana, the Director of the Bureau of the Pan-African Parliament, honorable delegates, faculty advisors, members of the ALAMAU community, and all distinguished guests. I'm extremely delighted this evening to welcome you all to the inaugural session of African Leadership Academy, Model African Union. 15 months ago, I found myself in a conversation a couple meters from here with some great students of this academy. And for the first time, we discussed the idea of this conference. And 12 months ago, we decided on a very concrete level that it was time to create a platform for the next generation of African diplomatic leaders to study, to understand, and to practice diplomacy, and to begin to step into the shoes of the great men and women whom they're going to replace in the near future. And this inaugural session of ALAMAU has been organized to coincide with the 50th anniversary year of the founding of the Organization of African Unity. It's been tagged the year of Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance. And when we decided to organize this conference, we thought about the work that the African Union has done, firstly with its predecessor, the Organization of African Unity, and more recently with the AU itself. And we thought about what the next generation of African leaders could do to improve this imperfect union of which we are all members. And this week, we remember Rwanda. And we remember the very painful genocide of 1994. And as we join the rest of the continent and the rest of the world to reflect on the very, very sad period in African history where brothers slaughtered brothers and sisters avoided sisters, it's important for us to think about how much progress we have made or have not made since then, and think about what we... May I please request that you all rise for us to observe a 1-minute silence to honor the memory of those who gave their lives at this very sad period of African history. Peace, and maybe learn from our mistakes. Thank you very much. After 1994, the world said, never again. And we all joined to say never again, whether or not we knew what exactly that meant. Because since 1994, there have been way too many instances of Rwanda repeating itself across this continent and across the world. As we sit here, people have been slaughtered in the Central African Republic, in the north of Nigeria, and in several other countries across this continent. And the question on my mind is, what have we learned from our past? The theme of this year's conference is shared challenges, common solutions. The story of Africa is a story of shared challenges. What's going on in Nigeria is no different from what's going on in Tanzania, no different from what's going on in Egypt or any other country across this continent. And when we think about common solutions, we are not thinking about one solution that can fit every single situation in Africa. We're thinking of how we can learn from each other and to work collaboratively to develop solutions for our continent. And over the course of the next 4 days, we'll be discussing issues of improving intra-Africa trade. We'll be discussing how to combat the growing threat of terrorism on this continent. We'll be thinking about how to harness the oil and gas potential in East and Southern Africa. We'll be thinking about how to eradicate electoral fraud on this continent. We'll be thinking about how to eliminate gender disparities in African education to ensure that no girl has it more difficult to go to school than a boy has. We will also be discussing, very importantly, the issues of youth unemployment in Africa and the AU Agenda 2063. 7 very important topics for Africa at this time. The question again on my mind is, what have we learned from our past, and what are we taking into our future? As I remain on the theme of Rwanda, I think about the fact that in April 2013, I had the privilege to meet the principal of Rivera High School, who was on a visit here to ALA to understand what we do and what lessons we can learn from each other. And he was the first head of school with whom I shared the idea of a model African Union. His school had never participated in any conference of this nature, but he instantly got excited and said, "We are coming next year." I thought, you perhaps don't know how expensive it's going to be. He said, "We are coming. Tell me how we're going to prepare my students. They're coming." I said, "Okay, I'll keep you posted." And over the following weeks, Mr. John Okech emailed several times. Even when we didn't reply after 24 hours, he was calling to us why we didn't reply. He was extremely proactive in getting his school registered for MAU 2014, and he kept me on my toes. His school, Rivera High School, was the first to register for this conference. They were the first to pay the registration fees, first to submit their research papers, and they had gone to the consulate of South Africa and Rwanda to apply for their visas. They paid $366 US, filled all their forms, got all the required documents, and the exact week when they went to submit their documents, voila, South Africa and Rwanda are not friends anymore. He called me and said, "We're in trouble, we need to submit our visa applications, and they won't allow us to submit." I said, "Well, let's see what we can do." We reached out to the Rwandese ambassador here in South Africa, and he said, "Tell them to go to Uganda or Burundi." I thought, my God, why do you have to travel to another country to apply for a visa to get to another country in Africa? And they went to Uganda, and they went to Burundi, and they were turned back. They were told that they were under strict instructions to not issue visas to any Rwandese citizen going to South Africa. If there is an issue between politicians, between diplomats, why should it affect the dreams of young people who want to contribute to the shaping of Africa? Why do we have to be the victims? And so Rivera High School is not here today, in spite of everything they did over the course of 12 months to be here. And we are incomplete without them. Our conference is not the same. Who knows when Rwandese citizens will again be able to come into South Africa? And beyond that, who knows what country is next on the list? Who knows whether I will be expelled from this place at some point because my country disagrees with South Africa? Who knows? What have we learned from our past? What are we taking into our future? As I wrap up, I'd like to encourage each of us to think about the fact that we may be young, we may be idealistic, we may be inexperienced, we may not understand the intricacies of the relationships between South Africa and Rwanda, or any other country for that matter. We are inexperienced, we know nothing. And I know that idealism is the parent of all innovation. It is that thought that I can do anything and I have no restrictions that made two young men to put aeroplanes in the sky, that made an innovator to put phones in your pocket, that made this building come into existence because someone thought, why not? You may be young, you may be idealistic, and that's exactly what you need. So let's think about what our idealistic selves will do for the future of Africa. Let's think about what our idealistic selves, our inexperienced selves, will do to ensure that we have proper trade between each other, and Nigeria doesn't have to export its oil outside the continent and then import it back at a very high rate. Let's think about what our idealistic selves will do to combat the threat of terrorism in Africa, to ensure that people who go to worship in a church on a Sunday do not have to be killed because they just want to worship. Let's think about what our idealistic selves will do to put every single girl in school, as well as every single boy on this continent. Let's think about what our idealistic selves will do for the future of this continent. Let us stay young, let us stay inexperienced, and let us stay idealistic. Thank you very much.